Arapahoe Basketball, welcome to the 2019-2020 basketball banquet. It's a little bit different this year, obviously with the circumstances of the world that surrounds us today. We're all going to get through this. It's going to be fine. We'll be playing basketball here in the next couple months and moving things forward. But I would tell you guys to honor the CDE recommendations, social distancing, washing those hands, don't get into group workout scenarios, work on your body, work on your individual skills, but there's obviously no reason to risk any of that. Love our group, love our community, so proud to be an Arapahoe Warrior, and we're going to run through basically each of our teams today, talk about a couple awards, and we probably should have a prize for if you sit through the entire video. There's a special prize at the very end, so make sure you watch the entirety of the video. Thank you so much and take care.
Good afternoon, my name is Dan Stewart and I had the privilege of coaching the freshman team. First, I'd like to thank a couple of the parents individually. Thank you, Michelle, for organizing and helping in so many ways. It was comforting to know we had volunteers lined up before each game. Also, thank you to Trent for filming. I know the players and myself appreciated being able to watch game film. Also, thank you to all the parents for helping with the book, clock, team feeds, carpooling. You guys are awesome. I had so many parents help in so many ways, and I'm so thankful for all of you. I also want to thank Coach Pachner for allowing me to coach. I've learned more from Coach Pachner in a year than maybe the last 12 years combined. What a great staff, players, parents, and culture. I also want to thank Coach Safford and the sophomore team for beating up on us on a regular basis. It did help us improve, although it was extremely frustrating at times. And I want to thank the varsity team. What a great season, and a season I will never forget. I love the way the seniors helped to cultivate a new culture and atmosphere around the entire program. You guys are a great example for the lower levels. We finished 3-16. Let's get that out of the way. It was one of the toughest seasons I have had. I hate losing, always have, always will. At halftime during the game at Grandview, I'm sitting on a table talking to the team when we hear a buzzer going off. I realize it is in my pocket because I can feel the vibration, but the players are thinking it's a fire drill. I pull out my phone and see 911 is on the caller ID. I close the phone app and put the phone away and continue talking about adjustments we need to make in the second half when my phone rings and it's 911 calling me. Now I'm thinking, yes, very appropriate. We have been a victim in the first half. Grandview has stolen the ball from us many times, so I'm debating whether I should tell that to the 911 operator. But common sense comes back to me and I answer and say, I accidentally butt dialed 911, but everything's okay. That's never happened to me before. But going back to the season, a season is more than a win-loss record. I'm not sure if this will make sense, but I really enjoyed the season, and the players are the main reason. An example of the great young men we have at Arapahoe is during an ice storm, I had several players offer to scrape my windshield. That's never happened in 15 plus seasons of coaching. But this team was all about improving. They worked hard in practice, worked to get better, and worked to help their teammates get better. I'm proud of how this team stayed together and stayed positive. I struggled with playing time and rotations, and in hindsight, I believe a main culprit was that I didn't have these players in the summer. We started the winter season learning about each other. We finished 3-11 in league and finished 7th. The thing I love most about this team was the way we improved game to game. It was nice to play teams a second time and see our improvement. An example of this was losing to Mullen by 52 points the first time, then losing by 7 the second time we played them. This was the lowest scoring team I've ever had. I believe we shot the ball fairly well, but turnovers killed us all season. We averaged 37 points per game and gave up 55. Some quick stats, we had 4 different players scoring double figures, led by Brock with 8 games, and Max with 4. During the season, we had 6 different players lead us in scoring in a game. For the season, we shot a pretty amazing 63% from the free throw line, a pretty good percentage for a freshman team. And every player who attempted a free throw shot 50% or better. We also had every player hit a 3 in a game during the season. That's a first for me. Now I'd like to talk about each of the individual players from the class of 2023. Jack Winslow. Jack is one of our shortest players in the program, but he makes up for it with hustle, basketball IQ, court vision, and a nice 3-point shot. His best game was against Overland when he hit 3 threes in the first half. Ian Thompson. Ian had our 4th most made threes on the season. He was Mr. Steady on the court, defending well, running the court, and rebounding. Ian is a good all-around player, and I really enjoyed having him on the team. Finn, and I'm not even going to try your last name. Finn was a pleasant surprise during tryouts. He came to the last day and really showed he is a dynamic passer, seeing the court extremely well. Finn is a gamer. His shot looks pretty unique. He has a great touch and they go in. Finn missed some games because his feet were frostbitten. That's a first for me as well, but came back strong and finished the season playing his best ball. Luke Corpus. Luke is a tough young man. He played a few games and practiced with a broken hand before being shut down for close to a month. We missed him while he was out. Luke is another good all-around player. He plays very unselfishly and sees the court well. Blake Stokes. Blake was named a co-captain by his teammates. Blake had a season-high 11 points against Smoky Hill. He's a streaky shooter who can hit the 3 in bunches. Blake was our 4th leading scorer for the season and had our 2nd most 3-pointers. Max Zadvorny, I guess. Max is a shooter. He was our 2nd leading scorer. Max led us in made threes with almost double the number of the next closest player. Max really got going after Christmas break. He led us in scoring 3 times. Max also led us in fouls, which he probably doesn't realize. He also had our highest free throw percentage at 81%, and he made the 2nd most free throws while having the 3rd most attempts. Kevin Anderson. Kevin was also voted a co-captain by his teammates. Kevin had a great season. He transitioned from a guy who wanted to play off the ball to our main point guard. He used his size effectively to rebound, get shots off, and to finish at the basket. He was our 3rd leading scorer, and he led us in scoring twice while scoring double figures in both of those games. Kevin also led us in free throw attempts and makes. AJ Chapman. AJ is a great young man. I loved having him on the team because he works hard, is coachable, and a great teammate. I loved his basketball IQ and court vision. He is way too unselfish and needs to look for his shot more often. Wilson Kirk. Wilson is also a great young man. Loved having him on the team. He's a sponge, soaking up as much basketball knowledge as possible. He's very coachable and a great teammate. He's one of those young men who team definitely comes first. His best game was against Grandview where he hit 2 threes. Daniel Gorder. Daniel is very similar to AJ and Wilson. Daniel's a good shooter but needs to look to shoot more often. He came on late in the season and hitting threes in 3 or 4 games. In fact, all of his points this season came from the 3 ball, so he might need to drive a little bit more. Brock Shellhouse. Brock had a strong season, leading us in scoring in the first 5 games of the season and 12 overall. He just fell short of averaging double figures with a couple of low-scoring games to end the season. He hit 2 threes, which were probably his highlight for the season, but his consistency in scoring and rebounding are the highlights in my mind for his season. Danny Roth. Danny's another gamer like Finn. He definitely played better in games than in practice. He struggled to stay healthy all season, battling ankle problems, but he gave us good minutes in the paint, and he often hit a big 3, got a big rebound, or made a drive to the basket. I want to thank all of these players for working hard, for not only improving their own game, but also helping their teammates to get better by competing hard in practice. I hope they will remember me and remember the saying, you're better than you think you are, and you can do more than you think you can. I want to thank you guys for the great season. Thank you.
Hey, this is Coach Safford. I'm here. I'm going to talk about the sophomore team. The first thing I'd like to do is, as Coach Stewart brought up, I'd like to thank our parents. I think they went above and beyond, whether that came from the filming, the organizing team feeds, Ms. Kirk for organizing all of the just parent events, doing the book, including that last tournament game where we had to call a few parents out of the stands. And finally, thank you to the managers also. A lot of times in practice we're kind of scrambling, and I don't know if they'll even see this or not, but we really appreciate all the effort and time they put in. I think this whole community aspect is really what drives this. It's as much as it is about the players, the situation involving the players, the community, the culture that Coach Pachner's staff are trying to build is really what matters. And I think you guys did a fantastic job exemplifying that in year 1, so thank you. All right, so first off, the sophomore team, the first thing I want to highlight is the year was the kids were obviously rotated around quite a bit. We had kids that went up to JV, kids that came down to JV, kids that played freshmen also, kids that moved up from freshmen also. And so I really want to highlight the ability of the sophomore team to kind of like adjust on the fly depending on who they had on certain days, who they didn't have on certain days. I never felt that there was any issue. I thought we were going to be strong no matter what. We were going to be confident in our ability to play, and that was awesome. One of the things is I told the sophomore game, I think before the Smoky Hill game, the second one maybe, is that no matter what, like I think we were the deepest, like one of the deepest teams out there because we had good kids, good skill from top to bottom, kids that I felt confident they could go out there and win a game, compete no matter what, and that's awesome because like not every coach is able to do that, so that's fantastic. Second is the mental approach. Every single day in practice, I feel like I had 1 or 2 or 6 kids asking me if we could play JV, whether that be in just straight up scrimmaging or playing UCLA or whatever it is. They always wanted to compete with that higher level to make sure they challenge themselves and really fulfill that potential. And I think that mentality is really what drove us to be successful and will drive the kids to be successful in the future. So now I'm going to go into some of the more specific kids. The first one I'm going to talk about is Finn. I have 2 big highlights for Finn. One is his mental fortitude. So Finn was able to play quite a bit on sophomore and then quite a bit on freshman as the year went on. And I really want to highlight Finn is one of those kids that you never heard any negativity. It was nothing but positive, even when he was getting most of his minutes on freshman team at the end of the year. And that like speaks to how great a character and how much potential Finn has. Finn was able to realize that like the most important thing is playing time, and if you weren't going to be able to get it at one level, you might as well go down to the another level so you can maximize your potential and be able to keep improving that way. And I think we really saw it as Finn grew throughout the year. And the other highlight is Finn really grew on defense. I think at the beginning of the year he kind of relied on his length and athletic ability, and towards the end of the year he used that as part of it, and then used like defensive positioning and awareness, and that way it allowed him to be like truly an even better defender. And I think Finn grew a huge amount as the year went on. Next is Andre. There are 3 things I want to highlight about Andre. First, Andre has an extreme desire to work. Regardless of what. He was one of the kids that after practice he asked me for a ball so he could stay and shoot, and a couple times I had to tell him no, and I felt unbelievably guilty. But in the end, we got it worked out where he was able to stay after and kept shooting, and really wanted to really exercise and keep getting better and work on his shot, and that's something that's truly absolutely wonderful. Andre also never complains about anything. Every discussion I had with Andre, it was positive, but it was about things that we could be constructively getting better at, and he wasn't upset about it. He understood it, he took it, and he grasped it, and he was able to have a conversation about it, and that's something I think that's truly remarkable in a young man, so that's absolutely wonderful. The last one is Andre had kind of a tough stretch in the middle of the season, and we had a conversation about it and talked about things we could do. I believe us and Coach Stewart had a conversation about it, and his response and his ability to respond, I think he went down for freshman maybe 2 games, and he played truly remarkable and came back up, and that confidence truly led to be able to be a great playmaker coming up on the sophomore level. So I want to credit Andre for his ability to show resiliency and ability to adapt to the situation. So good job, Andre. Now moving on to Matt Green. Matt Green, I want to highlight 2 things. First off, he's the only kid I believe in the program that started at 3 levels this year, which speaks a lot to his ability to like not be phased, whether it's playing at JV, playing a sophomore, playing a freshman. He just shows up and plays remarkable basketball no matter what he does. That really shows his ability, like how much potential that Matt Green has for the future, and the fact that he was able to like move all the way through. When they needed kids on the freshman level, he would go down to the freshman level and play well. When we needed him on the sophomore level, he would play well. When they needed him on the JV level, he would play well. And that speaks really well to Matt. Not only that, Matt was a fantastic listener, and I think part of his listening ability is like shows that his ceiling is very high, and he's going to have a very high ability to grow. So thank you, Matt. Next is Bruce. So Bruce, and I think every coach on the staff would agree with me, he has more energy and passion maybe than any kid in the program, or at least anyone that I've coached, and that is an absolutely wonderful problem to have. I think about 25% of my energy spent on game day was trying to get Bruce to calm down and make sure he wasn't rushed or getting too excited, and like that is an awesome and wonderful problem to have, because Bruce is like flying around trying to steal every ball, trying to foul everyone that he can. And I think Bruce, I want to say he fouled out of 3 of the first 4 games, and then maybe didn't foul foul out after that. And so that just shows his ability to like contain that passion and be able to make sure he's focusing and using them the right ways. But Bruce was absolutely a force on offense and defense. Absolutely loved having him, and yeah, he's a great kid. All right, next we have Maverick. Maverick is one thing I want to highlight is he's just absolutely calm. Like he could have hit 4 threes in a row. He could have gone 0 for 6. He looks the exact same regardless. And I think that's wonderful because that kind of goes into what he is. Like we want him to shoot the ball, or we want him to get those open shots and be calm while doing it, and that's absolutely wonderful. One of the things I want to highlight about Maverick is that he had games like the second Cherry Creek game where I think he said he shot 1 for 9 from 3, something like that, and was clearly distraught after, was upset. I didn't see any of this in the game. This was in conversation afterwards, of course. And he never once blamed anybody. He never once made any excuses. He simply said, "I didn't shoot well, coach," and that's the reason behind it. And it looked like he was on the verge of tears. And like one of the things I had for him is you need to make sure you stay confident, stay positive, and believe in yourself. You're going to be able to come back and like make 3 threes the next game, whatever it is. And like absolutely, that's what happened. He worked to change it, made sure he had a positive attitude, and was one of our most consistent shooters throughout the year. Next, we have Ty. I think Ty had one of my favorite moments throughout the year, and that was in the first Grandview game when he managed to throw up and was unsure where the vomit had come from. I believe he was surprised and thought it was leaking from the ceiling or something like that as he held it in his hands. And so I think the rest of the world was kind of grossed out, but he went and washed his hands. Oh, and shout out to Coach Carrillo for cleaning it up since he was the closest one at the time. But anyway, Ty, again, it's kind of a similar story to Bruce's. Like Ty has a lot of passion, a lot of energy, and he was infamous. Like he broke out he got ejected in the Overland game, and like that was kind of, I think, a moment that had Ty very frustrated. And I think one of the real highlights about Ty was his ability to kind of move on from that. And like Ty's energy and passion that he showed at the beginning of the game was kind of misdirected maybe towards fans or towards refs or towards the opposing teammates. I really think that he adjusted that and made sure he was focused towards the game, and I think that really improved his ability to play. Next we have Luka. So I cannot speak enough how great Luka was. One of the real like highlights that Luka had was in practice, he was literally another coach out there on the floor. You had me, you had Coach Stewart, and you had Luka out there. If I needed the sophomore team to run a certain set or run a certain play, Luka was 100% the dude that went out there, and he was able to get kids organized. He led every single day in dynamics. He was absolutely a huge vocal leader. And I truly believe that this led to success on the court as well. One of the things is like whenever he came on the floor, he was absolutely one of the vocal leaders. He made sure everyone was on the same page, whether we were pressing, whether we were running a certain offensive initiator. Luka was absolutely that dude. Okay, moving on to Bo. So most of you know Bo had an injury to one of his knees before the season. And so the thing I want to highlight is that Bo was like really working through to get back to 100%, and I truly believed he grew more than any other player on the sophomore team this year, and part of that is because of the injury. But regardless, he was able to not use the injury as an excuse, but as something to like build upon to get stronger then. I truly think that Bo showed incredible growth as far as an athlete, as far as his explosiveness through the year, and I really think towards the second half of the year is when Bo was truly growing the most. I'm excited for Bo's future because he was hampered by the injury and because now he's getting free of that injury, and I'm truly excited for what the future holds for him. Next we have Austin. The first thing I want to highlight is that Austin had sickness going into the year, or he was coming off an injury at the beginning of the year and then had sickness in the middle of the year, or something along those lines. Regardless, because of that, I really want to highlight the fact that Austin was able to like put those aside and play good basketball behind it. And that's like truly remarkable because those things can be truly damaging if you let them like get self-absorbed. Like you can use the sickness or the injury as like, oh, an excuse. That's probably why I'm not as explosive or not as good as I should be. And I think regardless of that, I think Austin truly grew throughout the year and got significantly better. He was able to show up during practice when he was sickness, and he still got mental reps even if he wasn't able to get physical reps. And then towards the end of the year in the tournament, he was absolutely wonderful. Like Austin competed out there with the best of them, brought his A game every single day, and I truly felt like he was a reliable kid to go to in the post. All right, next for Thomas. The first thing for Thomas is his work ethic. Like anyone that's around Thomas for any moment of time knows absolutely that he works harder than anybody else around him, and that is truly amazing. One of the things I want to highlight about Thomas is we all know he works really hard on his personal game, which is awesome. I think he truly got better about working and making sure the team got better as well. One of the things I kind of tasked Thomas with at the beginning of the year is making sure he was a vocal leader for positive change out there on the court. And I really think he did that both in practice and in the games. There were still some times where he slipped up and communication was misinterpreted, but I really think he made really good strides being that positive teammate that pushed kids to work harder every single day. And then one of the things is that I truly love as being a coach is Thomas brought a scouting report to us before the second Grandview game. It was detailed, it had some of their sets written out, it had some of their out of bounds plays written out, and it had many of the same things I had written up prior to the game. And I just want to highlight, like, that is absolutely wonderful for a student to be able to process the game that way and then have the drive to want to do that is like truly unbelievable. So I thank him for that. Last but not least is Zach. One of the things that Zach had challenging coming into this year is obviously he's coming from a different school. And so the first thing I want to highlight is I really feel that Zach grew as an individual who was able to communicate with his teammates. I really think that Zach, like at the beginning, he's obviously kind of shy and he was a little hesitant to talk to his teammates. Towards the end of the year, he was right there. He was one of them. One of the things that actually really made me think that is that he was joking around with Q in one of the practices between with JV and sophomore being together, and he was talking trash to Q, how he blocked a shot or something like that, whatever it was. I was like, oh man, they do get along, and that's awesome, and that's wonderful for Zach, because that's going to be an important stride for him to make. One of the things that I liked about Zach is he's obviously very long, and he knows how to use that length. I think Zach probably had the most blocks for the sophomore team this year. I don't know that for sure, but I'd have to imagine he's up there for sure. He really uses his length well around the rim, given how his foot speed is above most of the posts out there. And lastly, going back to the team, there are three things I want to highlight. Is first, I truly believe that this team represents the future, and so I'm unbelievably excited for how that future is going to unfold to basketball players. More importantly, that I'm extremely proud of each of them. I think each of them are wonderful people, regardless of basketball, and I enjoyed working with each of you every single day. I looked forward to practice, I looked forward to games because of how wonderful you are as people. And one thing Coach Pachner and the entire staff has kind of highlighted this whole time is that we have great kids here at Arapahoe, and I know sophomore team is just an example of this, and it goes all the way through the program, but I truly believe that sophomore team, you guys are wonderful individuals, and I'm excited to see what happens both on the court and off the court in your future. Thank you.
Hello everybody, and I hope everybody pretty much knows me, Coach Hamtray. I coached the JV team this year. Hope everybody's staying safe. Thanks for coming to the banquet this year. It wasn't really what we wanted, but hey, we're getting it done. So like Coach Pachner said, hopefully you guys can make it through the whole video. Not sure what the prize is, but I guess we'll find out. I just want to say some quick thank yous, and then I'll get into the team and kind of our season. I want to say thanks to the whole staff. Thanks to Coach Pachner for letting me be part of this staff and be part of such an amazing school like Arapahoe. I tell most people, and I told a lot of our kids, when I was in high school, I played at Golden. Arapahoe was the flagship school, it was the basketball school, and we're going to get it back there, but man, when I got the opportunity to go coach there under Coach Pachner at such a great school, I jumped at it. So just really, really thankful to be a part of this staff. I also want to thank Coach Carrillo, Coach Keene, Coach Stewart, Coach Stafford for being my bench assistants and really helping me out during the season, because man, I don't know how I would be able to get through a lot of those games, Mullen being one of those, without any assistance. So that was great, man. They took a lot of pressure off of me, helped me with some substitution rotations, and all that kind of stuff. So that was huge. I want to say thanks to those guys and just the staff as a whole. Again, man, this is the most collaborative staff I've ever been a part of, and it's a lot of fun to do it this way, and I'm looking forward to a lot more years doing it with these guys. So thank you to those guys. Also want to say thank you to the parents for organizing team feeds and organizing the sandwich pickups and stuff before games. That means a lot to these kids, and have some food in them before they go play. I mean, that makes all the difference. So we couldn't do this without you guys, so we really appreciate that. And also thanks to the managers. Holy cow, earlier in the season, kind of in the summer when we had to manage all that stuff, that was kind of that's quite the show. We're trying to coach and also take care of that stuff, but man, those girls were great. They took all that pressure off of us and really allowed us to focus on coaching basketball and coaching your kids. So man, we wouldn't be here doing this. We wouldn't have the success that we would have had, or that we did have, without those girls. So hopefully they're watching. If not, they deserve recognition. But if they are watching, thank you, ladies. That was great. You guys were awesome this year. I also just want to say thank you. I'll talk more about the JV guys, but I was also a varsity assistant. I want to say thanks to the varsity guys, man, for letting me come in here as a young guy, allowing me to coach you, really listening to what I have to say, and also for teaching me a lot of things. Believe it or not, I learned a lot from the seniors, especially this year, not only about basketball, just about how to be a man, honestly. We have some great character guys that are graduating this year. It's a shame that, we didn't get to spend more time with them, but I was thankful for every minute I got to spend with not just our seniors, but that whole varsity group, and can't thank them enough for letting me be a part of this and letting me be a part of such an amazing time in their life. So thank you guys, I really appreciate it. Going off of that, I'm really proud of the culture we're kind of establishing here. Everything that we're doing, all the hard work that we're pouring into this to get Arapahoe back where it should be. It's starting to pay some dividends, I think. Hopefully you guys can see that, but I definitely see it. And you can just tell, man, I can feel it. I hope you guys can too, that we're getting this thing back and we're going to be doing some much more grandiose things than we did this year. But I'm proud of the season that we had as a varsity team. So with that being said, I'll kind of transition more into the JV stuff. It wasn't really the year we wanted as far as wins and losses, but Coach Stewart said it best. It's not all about wins and losses. It's about the player development and more, character development. And I think we did a pretty good job of doing that, and our guys came a long way in both those aspects this year, and I'm really proud of that. The work that we put into it and those kids put into it. They made a lot of gains this year, and they should be proud of that, even if it didn't reflect on the overall record. We had a lot of fun this year. It was definitely the funnest team I've ever coached. A lot of personalities on that team, a lot of fun, a lot of not so much fun, right, guys? Like at the halftime of that Overland game, I'm sure you'll remember that for a while. I had to get into you a little bit, but is what it is. I didn't like losing to those guys. I know you guys didn't either, but is what it is. And then at the end of that Mullen game, that circus, really what that is those guys don't like being swept by Arapahoe, but they're gonna have to get used to it. So that's all that was. And then Jared scoring on the wrong basket in our first game in a tight game against Legend. It was all a lot of fun. Jared, if we would have lost that game, we'd be having a different conversation, but we won, so it is what it is now. But my job really as a JV coach is to prepare these kids for varsity. I know a lot of guys maybe didn't agree with the way that I did that, but frankly, I'm a filter. I'm a filter for Coach Pachner, and I'm there to see if you guys can respond to adversity that I'm going to throw your way as a coach. And if you can't, you're not going to be a varsity player. But all of our kids really came a long way as far as accepting that challenge and doing what they can and being good teammates. And I'm really, really proud of that. Is all those guys in that JV unit were just great teammates down the stretch, and I think that says a lot more about these kids than the wins and losses. So I'm looking forward to seeing their basketball careers grow. Off of the steps that we made this year. So I'll talk individually about all of our guys. I'll start with Q. Q was really impressive. It was, that was new news to me that I didn't know that Q was that new to basketball. Man, if he's only been playing for this short a time, I can't wait to see what kind of basketball player we can grow him into. But Q has all the intangibles. He's a hustle guy. He'll play defense. He'll go rebound. He'll go bang in there with the big guys. There's a lot to be said for a kid like that, especially at Q's size. I've encouraged him to play some football because, man, that kid, we love him as a basketball player, but he's got some football in him, and that's why we love him on our team. So it was a great year with Q. He came a long way as far as skill development, and I'm looking forward to being able to grow him into a good basketball player down the line in 3 more years. Talk about Cole. He was a shooter. He was a really good leader for us this year. He's, Cole isn't a super vocal guy, but he really grew into that as the year went on and progressed, and really owned that role as a captain. And I was really proud of that, and him doing the football thing and being the quarterback and probably going to be a captain on that team. We're really excited about the kind of leadership that Cole is going to provide our basketball program and the football program ahead. So I'm really looking forward to being around him for a couple more years. But, great shooter, really grew his ball handling ability and finishing ability as the year went on. So again, really excited to see him grow and have him for a couple more years. Kyle Sweeney, just a natural scorer. Sweeney could score it by shooting the ball, driving. Sweeney didn't get nearly the calls that he should have this year. I don't like to say that, but it's the truth. He would go in there and get thrown to the ground and not get anything. But man, he really grew his maturity as the year went on about not reacting much and really, coming and talking to me about it. And Kyle, I'm just telling you right now, varsity officials aren't that much better, but they're better. You'll get a little bit more love on that level. So I appreciate all the leadership you showed as well. It's just, again, same thing that I said with Cole. I'm really looking forward to being around those guys for a couple more years and having them be at the head of our program. I'm really excited for that. Our last captain was John. It was a tough season for John. He struggled either with injury in the summer or kind of in the early part of the season, injured or being sick, and then he had the mono thing. But really what speaks to me about John is him really sticking it out. A lot of kids, high school kids, they're hurt or they're sick or they have something like the mono where they think they're going to be done for the rest of the season. A lot of those guys just mail it in. They come to practice every once in a while, maybe come to games, but John showed up to everything. John was literally another assistant on the bench for me and offered ideas and was a true leader on the bench even when he wasn't playing. There's a lot to be said for that, man. I'm really proud of John and excited to have him for another year. He was a lot of fun to have. We'll move on here to Marshall. Man, Marshall was a lot of fun to coach. That kid just flies around, isn't afraid to throw his body into guys and dive on the floor for loose balls. That's stuff that it's hard to coach. You can coach it a little bit, but for the most part, that kind of attitude, you either got it or you don't. Marshall's got it. So, guys like that, they're going to be a real asset to our program moving forward. And man, I really loved coaching Marshall this year. I always knew what I was going to get from him. He was Mr. Steady. I'm going to get one broken nose, maybe a broken leg, and definitely some blood. So, yeah, Marshall's my guy, man. It was a lot of fun coaching Marshall this year. Looking forward to having him as well. We'll talk about Jared a little bit. He offered what we really needed on that team, which was a low post presence. I mean, you take Jared out of that equation, and man, we really struggle with some of the size in our league. Even though he scored on the wrong basket at one time, Jared, but he gave us a lot of stuff we needed. Low post presence, offensively and defensively, wasn't afraid to bang, offer some physicality that we really needed down the stretch of the league. So it was a lot of fun coaching Jared this year. Matt White is just a great rebounder, versatile defender. Matt White is a guy that I was never afraid of the whole switching thing. We run a lot of switches in our man-to-man defense, and he's a guy that can guard both low post guys, bigger bodies, or if he gets switched onto a guard, he can keep that guy in front and use his length to defend that guy. So, man, it was really, really nice having a guy like that you can just put out there and that he's going to take care of business and do all the dirty work. So it was a lot of fun having Matt White on the team this year as well. Ben Hess is just a natural scorer, a natural shooter. I mean, I haven't seen in my whole life a guy that can shoot it like that from mid-range or from deep. Ben's just got that stroke that a lot of kids, really strive to get, and he's got it. We just continue to work on him and grow him as a basketball player as a whole. But man, it's nice always having a guy that can go out there and he can score it if you need it. So it was a lot of fun having Ben on the team. Andre, Andre's just a grown man. Holy cow! We always joke with him. We think that he's actually 25. He looks like it, but yeah, he just attacks the basket relentlessly and isn't afraid to finish through contact and meet guys at the rim, both offensively and defensively, and just an amazing slasher. We really wish that we could have Andre for another year. We think he could do some things with us next year, but it was a lot of fun having a guy like that on the team. Just a good kid. A lot of fun to be around, and just a great basketball player too. So I hope he sticks with it, and I hope he had a great experience with us here in the United States and can take some of that back to his home country. So it was a lot of fun having Andre. We'll talk about Liam here for a second. Liam, just like Q, both of those guys, haven't played much basketball yet, and it's really surprising watching them play because man, they pick it up. The thing I appreciate about Liam is he's a great perimeter defender. He's really coachable. But man, Liam is about as straight a shooter as you can ask for. If he's got ideas or if he's got questions about things, he'll let you know. And I love that. If he's got different concepts that he thinks could work, I kind of view coaching as a little bit of a, kind of a democracy a little bit. I'll make the calls, but man, these players got to have a say, I think. So Liam was never afraid to, bring that. So it was a lot of fun having Liam do that for me this year. Last but not least, Eric Yenny. He had an up and down season as far as being sick, injured, kind of had a roller coaster of a year as far as playing time. But man, just like John, what I really appreciate about Eric is he never let that affect his attitude. I always knew what I was going to get from Eric as far as an attitudinal standpoint. He was going to come, he was going to be ready to go when his number was called, and that guy can defend. And he, one thing that I've just been hounding Eric about is, just like Dan said, I can't remember the exact quote, but like he's a lot better than he thinks he is. There were times I had to beg Eric to shoot the basketball, and it's like, man, you're the best, one of the better shooters in the program. I shouldn't have to do that. And he's a lot more athletic than he thinks he is, and we just got to get him through that wall, because I think Eric could be a real asset for us next year. So, but again, just having a fun guy like that on the team, we'll get him in the Pachner exteriors at Yeti or whatever on the Fortnite Twitch streaming. So we'll get that going. Looking forward to another year with Eric. But yeah, lastly, I just want to say again, thank you to the parents for letting me coach your kids. It's a privilege and an honor, and it means a lot. So thank you guys. It was a great season.
All right, we're ready to talk about the program as an overview on the varsity team specifically, and forgive the beard. I went with the social distancing rules and couldn't shave. Maybe that's not the case, but so be it. Anyway, thanks again for, if you've watched all of this to this point, kudos to you. Again, the big surprise is coming at the end here, so if you fast forward to it, it automatically deletes, so you have to stay through it. All right, we want to get some thank yous out to our incredible community. It really does take a village here to push Warriors forward. And I'll start off by the folks that hired me, Pat McCabe, Natalie Pernenko. Just really appreciate everything that you guys did to put me in this position. And Janelle Weems makes everything go round. Sorry, Pat, but she really does make the athletic realm work for Arapahoe. So for the three of you, Promenko, did I say it right this time? We'll try it there. Anyway, sorry about that, Natalie. Thanks again for the opportunity to lead the Arapahoe program forward as we go. We also want to thank two foundational characters that when I was first hired, it was such a chaotic time, and we had to build a staff. We had to figure out what it was to lead Arapahoe basketball. And so I really want to reach out and thank Greg Scheckenbach and all of his efforts as our treasurer, and just the guy that in the very beginning helped me find my way and find traction. And then Jessica Adams, what an incredible job she did in orchestrating everything about our program. I think she probably knew the job was going to be a big one, but it turned into much more as time went on. And Jessica and Greg, there's just no way we could have done this without you guys this year, so thank you very much. Additionally, we want to thank our players, because they were incredible across the line. And for the 45 or 46 young men that we had in our program, it was just a pleasure to serve all of you and to learn about you off the court, to see your strengths and your areas of need on the court. But really, it's much more about who you are as people, and we were blessed to serve with you. A special shout out to our seniors. Listen, seniors can take it a lot of different ways. When you have a new coach who comes in, and he's especially a guy from Valor, that immediately raises some red flags. It certainly would in my mind. But anyway, you have this guy coming over, and he's been around, and he's done some winning, but the seniors were amazing. They just welcomed my staff and I from day one, and committed, because had our seniors not committed to revitalizing Arapahoe basketball, it simply wouldn't have happened this year. And so we owe them greatly. Our managers were selfless, and we really needed help just from kind of the organizational structure of day-to-day activities. And our managers, Corey Hess, helped find these young ladies and put them together. But Danica, Abby, Amelia, and Hannah, it was just incredible to have you guys with us this year. The best thing ever is 2 are sophomores and 2 are freshmen. So hopefully we didn't drive you out of the program, and we'll have you for the next few years. I know, girls, your favorite duty was when Jackson forgot to bring in the sealed tub, and we had a little bit of a mouse episode in the snack closet. You girls were sweeping up, we told you it was granola, but in fact it was from the mice. And sorry about that, and we'll make sure that doesn't happen in the future. But thanks again, girls. We also want to thank our parents. Were incredible this year. And listen, I've been a parent of a high school athlete, and I know it can be very challenging. And I think that by and large, you were so welcoming to my staff and I, and excited for a change, and it showed in your attitude and just the way that you poured into our program. Playing time issues are tough. In the end, as parents, we love our community, but you should love your child more than anything else. But I thought that you kept that in balance by and large. A couple of you maybe not, but by and large, I thought the balance was really good. And just can't wait to continue to grow this community forward. So thank you all specifically for what you did. My staff was incredible. You know, these guys, I worked just a little bit with a couple of these guys, but Coach Carrillo had helped me out with some youth basketball at the previous school down the street. And it was great to have him facilitate our youth program and to assist at the high school level. Coach Keene was just an incredible motivator and skill developer, has a high level IQ for the game, and it was great to have Coach Keene, even though I shouldn't have hired the guy because he beat one of my better teams in an Elite Eight game. We won't talk a lot about that, but we would not have lost. We had a kid with a concussion that we'll leave that alone, but Coach Keene and I love to argue that. Coach Hammondtree was great to have on the staff as our JV head coach, did a great job for us. You know, Coach Brett's another guy that we played against when I was at Devlin for years at the rival school, Golden. And Coach had to come over here and learn from me because they could never beat us, not once at Golden. But that's okay. Coach, he's great. I love how he works with kids, and frankly, he's my right-hand man in all of this. Coach Stewart came in. It was great to get a guy that, we've got some young coaches, which is awesome. But we needed another guy with a little bit of gray in the beard, or white in my case. And Coach Stewart came along and has coached for many seasons at Heritage and Thunder Ridge and all over the place. He was a former varsity head coach. It was just a joy to have him to bring us just that stability and maturity that was so needed at the freshman level. And then lastly, Coach Stafford is a great guy. He's the winningest coach in Arapahoe basketball at this point with that sophomore team. They just had a great run of it. And as long as Coach and I don't talk politics, we're in a great spot. But he really brings joy and passion. I think he signs his emails lover of life, which I really respect. And especially in times like this, I think that's kind of where we all need to have that mindset as we move forward. So anyway, again, just love my staff and those folks as well. Now, specific parents, I have some thank yous to make. Again, we talked about Greg and Jessica and all that they did for our program, and really appreciate you guys. But Jessica gave me a list of folks that she wanted to offer these as thank yous, but really they come from our entire staff and the program. Natasha Simonson, the media guide that you put together and worked tirelessly on is incredible. And it really is reflective of your efforts. It shows our program well. And thank you so much for your professionalism on that. Holly Malcolm led us with our For There With Care early season day of service. And it was awesome to see our kids just embrace that and begin to understand that being selfless is one of the foundational building blocks of Arapahoe basketball. Megan Geller and Jeff Yagi, thanks for your efforts with senior night. That was a real special time. We did have 7 seniors, so there was a lot of extra work put into that. But really want to thank you guys for your efforts there. Mandy Kahn, geez, you did an incredible job with this banquet here. Everything that you see tonight came from the efforts of Mandy. This food was incredible. I'm actually starving to death, Mandy. I'm a little disappointed in that. But it's too bad because Mandy really worked hard along with Jessica and Greg and a couple others to have this banquet well positioned. But we'll get to one next year for sure and celebrate you then. Susan Wilson's the best scorekeeper, bookkeeper that I've ever had. It's great to be able to have someone that actually volunteers. I'll tell you right now, I love our parents, but we sure had a lot of you guys who wouldn't make eye contact with me when it was book time early in the season. You saw it was like the Turk. I was carrying the book around, kind of looking up in the crowd, and you folks were averting your glances very quickly. So thanks, Susan, for doing that, and just love your son, both your sons, and everything they've meant to Arapahoe basketball. The the team moms that did so much to organize the away feeds and also the team feeds at individual parent homes were incredible. We want to thank at the freshman and sophomore level, Michelle Kirk did a great job with that, and for all the parents that hosted there, we really appreciate you. Holly Hansen and Naja Allen David for your work with the JV team. That was exceptional and appreciated. And then as I was a beneficiary of a few too many pounds and meals from Angela Brophy and Diane Liberty, you guys were the best. Diane, it was so cool when you hosted that the meeting before the season started. I thought that was such a foundation for the varsity team and coaches as we look to build this community, and I really appreciate both of your efforts on that as well. And then to all our families, the driving, the flexibility, the team feeds that we talked about, keeping book or filming, for some of our underlevel teams, was really special. And finally, we have to thank Mike Parsons as well, the gentleman who was responsible for our excellent filming of varsity games and this incredible film that you're going to see, the highlight film that we've included as a link on this email, or will be included as well. So anyway, I want to make sure, I think I got through pretty much the list of thank yous. And of course, my wife, I need to thank my wife for allowing me to do this now for 30 years, it was 26 years, 25 years as a varsity head coach. I think you're starting to see kind of maybe what it takes to run a high-level program and the commitment and time that goes into that. The $5,000 that my incredible stipend probably doesn't cover the, wait a second, we're gonna do this very unprofessionally. Interrupt me, go.
Hess.
Okay, thank you. We've got to get Coach Hess in here as well. So we're not going to edit this out, I don't think. We'll see what happens. But anyway, so we're going to backtrack that real quick. So Coach Hess, really appreciate all the incredible performance work. This guy's world class, and we were so blessed to have a guy that was, led the Nuggets for 20 years, is completely respected in the industry as one of the true giants. And his staff as well for all that they poured into our athletes. We're looking forward to continuing that relationship. So I definitely need to thank my wife, Fran, or Frances as she prefers. I prefer Fran, so we kind of argue about it. But Frances has done a great job of supporting me these 30 years, 26 as a varsity head coach. The $5,000 stipend that we received probably doesn't fill the bill, if you will, for the full time that we put into this year-round position. And I just appreciate her allowing me to follow my passions. And then my son Isaiah, who made it to a couple games with his crew, but really my daughter Heidi, this is all her camera equipment, and she's the technical genius behind this, and her husband John. They're the loud people at all of our games, and it was awesome how you people, a lot of our parents would thank them and developed a relationship. And it just means a lot to have your daughter and son-in-law who come to high school games in support of a program, and their father's pretty special. Now, hopefully we have hit everybody we needed to thank at this point. As we look back at the varsity season, it was a whirlwind, these 10 months that we were together. We were hired in late April, May, whatever that timeline was, and then we were playing basketball games in which one was it? The Chaparral League shortly thereafter. And it was amazing to see game by game, practice session to session, how our kids started to emulate a so-called Pachner system or whatever it is that we run. And the summer was a lot of fun. We did well. We really competed. I think we started to see glimpses in the summer that this team could compete at high levels. San Diego was tremendous. We just, frankly, when you look back at this 20 years from now, and our players are talking about their high school experience, they'll remember San Diego, and they'll remember things that we did together as a group. Brothers Barbecue, was it Brothers? No, what's the name of that place out there in San Diego? No, it'll come to me. But anyway, we have a great barbecue place, Phil's Barbecue. And every year, maybe it's not honest to do it, but I always take a commemorative cup or two home. We've got about 10 of these Phil's cups. Natalie, if that's stealing, I apologize. I figure when we spend as much money in there as we do, so be it. But we've got these things for years, and I've taken so many different groups of players to San Diego, whether it was my Lake Isabella kids, teams from, which is in California, my teams from Devlin, my teams from the school up the street, and it was so exciting to be able to take Arapahoe to the UC San Diego tournament. But it feels, I got to tell you, I struggle with the way these kids eat and the food all over the faces and the finger licking. See, I was into all this hand sanitizing before we were all forced into it today. And this is going to be a win for me as we have these meals, things will look a little better. But anyway, just a great time out there in San Diego and seeing these guys, try so many times to, we'd go to the beach and just see the misses. I mean, and the resilience of our players as they try to, talk to pretty girls on the beach and to get numbers, or I think it's Insta today. Snapchat, thank you. And just time after time, some of the, Louisville especially, really struggled. Michael, Corey will tell you that he wasn't looking because he has a girlfriend, but I'm not sure what happened there. But anyway, we had a great summer. And on we went to the regular season. The fall, we worked our tails off to try to get in a position to compete. And again, thanks to Coach Hess and our players for the time that you dedicated. I felt like we were coming along, 1 year into a system. Our system's pretty complex. If you really think about the communication requirements from a defensive perspective, multiple press fronts, dribble drive is not just roll it out and let them play. There's actually a great deal of structure to dribble drive offense. And our kids really came a long, long ways at all 4 levels in 1 year. But the season itself was amazing. Our non-league, we ran out to an 8-1 non-league record, which was tremendous. And I think that frankly, I don't know if it came easy or not, but as a staff, we knew that things were going to be more challenging in the Centennial League. But we took care of the schedule that was presented to us, and it positioned us to get into the playoffs and make a little run. And our guys played tremendously well, I felt like, in that early part of the season. Listen, the Centennial League is the best year in and year out. Sometimes you'll get some noise out of the Continental League, but I really appreciated the way our kids stayed resilient. We ended up winning 4 league games, which is not what we intended to win. We certainly had hoped to be a 500 team. It could have bounced that way. Frankly, it's foundational for the success of our program moving forward that we're a 500 and above team in Centennial League play. And we'll get there. But we had some big wins this year, and it was awesome to see the excitement. Always beating Heritage is a great thing, and just love to see the excitement of our kids in that game. But I felt like early in league play, we struggled a little bit to make the adjustment to the non-league schedule. But boy, by the second half, we were a tough out, and we were right there with some of the very best teams in the state. We got to the playoffs, and I wish we'd had a little better seed, but we had a great game against Fort Collins at home. It was fun to see just the excitement of our players had never been, nobody on this team had ever played a playoff basketball game. And it was awesome to get back to that level. And then, the Ralston Valley game was disappointing. However, we certainly had a great showing in the second half. And if we'd have shot the ball at all and rebounded a little bit better in the first half, we would have been right there at the buzzer. But that game does not define our season. I thought it was an incredible first year for these guys as far as on the court goes. I would say it's a success in any way that you would measure it. We were 13-12, second round of playoffs. We just did some incredible things, and frankly, we took some real strides from the last couple years in Arapahoe basketball, and this was a foundational layer that we needed to set. The truth is, though, the real success was not on the court. It was the system implementation that will be so much more smooth moving forward. And frankly, it was even much more important than that was the cultural foundation that our seniors and all of our players and coaches and parents contributed to this year. And that's really where we're going to see the dividends pay off in the future. The winning will take care of itself. The culture is the foundation. And I really appreciate that and thought that was reflected in our great season. We'll talk about some of our players here quickly. and run through this. And we'll start off with 3 sophomores that played significant minutes at the varsity level. Chase DiAgostino is going to be an incredible basketball player. He shoots the ball. He's a strong-bodied rebounder, has a super high intellect and IQ for the game. I think that Chase had a little bit of a struggle this year just from an injury point of view, and it impacted him. You know, he missed much of the fall, and then right when the season was getting started, he had another sprained ankle. And Chase, battled through that. I think it affected his lateral quickness, but we're looking forward to the off-court gains that will be made by you, just in fully rehabbing and recovering. Chase loves the game. He's probably a little too hard on himself. He's super analytical, but Chase is going to be one of the best players to come through Arapahoe in some time, and we're excited for these next 2 seasons. So thank you, Chase, for all that you did. Jackson Adams, man, we love Jackson, another of our sophomores. He brings some beast mode to Arapahoe basketball. We love our football guys that can bring that toughness in and physicality. Now, sometimes Jackson has to turn that physicality, I don't know about turn the physicality down, but make sure it's something referees aren't going to deem as an intentional foul or something along those lines. But I love Jackson. He has just great enthusiasm for sports in general. And one of the things that stood out for me late in the season is how Jackson was probably our most analytical player. During film study, he would just say, hey guys, we got to go A, B, C. This guy does this. I mean, you can tell he has that football background and an extreme knowledge of the sport. And Jackson's going to be a world beater these next couple of years, and we can't wait to see and follow his successes on the football field and the basketball court as well. Derek Pranger, love Derek. I think that the term that I hope I'm not disparaging him, but late in the season it was the big lanky. That one of the kids, or maybe himself, I don't know who came up with it, but the big lanky was special. I love Derek. I enjoyed coaching him. Halfway through the season, he started this turn me up thing with Coach. He'd come over to me and he'd turn me up, Coach. And I didn't really know what that meant, so I just kind of get excited because I'm a little older. And I just really appreciated Derek's spirit and love of the sport. Derek came a long way when we started, and this for our younger players to learn a lot from Derek. Derek in the summertime was way too concerned about how many points he scored, how he was shooting the basketball. And not that he was selfish, but it would impact the way that he played the game around it. And he would hang his head, and hanging your head only puts you in positions to be, frankly, ignored or to be viewed by coaches for the wrong reasons. And Derek fixed that. It was incredible. We talked about it a couple times coming into the season. He just had such a selfless attitude. And Derek's going to be, I believe Derek can be an all-state basketball player in the future if he continues to put the work in. And we need him to take a step up to be one of our very best players next year. One of the reasons we were so good down the stretch is Derek stopped thinking so much about shooting the basketball and simply hung true to mechanics, got his eyes up and let it fly. Started rebounding, did some great things. So Derek, it was a pleasure. Thank you. AJ Scheckenbach. AJ's the man. AJ is a guy that can play multiple positions for us. I would tell you that what I most appreciate about AJ is that smile that he has. You'll see him at practice, and he'll kind of give you that quirky smile, kind of a half smile. And I just really appreciate that spirit about him. And one of the things that AJ taught me this year was, he had a really good middle section to the season, and then went through a couple games late where he didn't shoot the ball well, didn't play a lot. But man, he was the most excited guy after those games and those victories. And I was just reminded that this is not about my minutes, my scoring, my shots. It's about the camaraderie of the group and the success of the team. And AJ exemplified that. So appreciate him a ton. And we need AJ next year to be that stellar shooter that he showed he could be in the second half of the season. And lockdown defender. He's a very good athlete. Sneaky athletics, got pretty good hops, but AJ's got to continue to work on ball security and just to be confident as a player, and he's going to be one of our true leaders next season. Thanks, AJ. Ben Yagi. Ben, I love Ben. Ben's probably the most lateral athlete, most explosive athlete in the program, and one of the top 2 or 3 guys I've ever coached in that capacity. And it's almost cartoonish how quickly he can accelerate and move sideways. Ben is a guy that really scored the ball in stretches this year, but it's important, Ben, that you continue to grow your confidence and understand that, Ben is not the most verbose of individuals. In a basketball setting, he can be a little bit quiet, and we're going to need to have continued growth in that area. I know that Ben knows that our system requires communication, and so if you're not going to talk, you're not going to play. So I hope everybody hears that at all levels. You must be a team communicator, really on and off the court. But Ben showed some real growth in that regard late in the season. He's self-named, which I love, Bubbly Ben, which is the best nickname ever. And I just really appreciated that side of him. And frankly, down the stretch, Ben was one of our very best players in the last 2 weeks of the season. And so, Ben, thanks again. And we need you next year to take a huge step. Thank you. We're going to jump into our rather large senior class. We love these guys. Michael Wilson started off for us. I just have nothing but respect for Michael. And Michael did not receive, like by worldly standards, if all you're thinking about is shots, scoring opportunities, playing time, I guess Michael had a failing season, if that's how you view things. He doesn't view it that way, and we certainly don't either as a basketball community. Michael did not receive a lot of minutes in overtly competitive situations, but you would never have guessed that by the way he carried himself in practice. This guy is a competitor. Every sprint, Michael Wilson's going to win it. Scout team, he picked stuff up immediately. He's a very good athlete, and I just thought Michael was a terror on the scout team every day out. But I think really what it comes down to is when I watch film, just so you know, as we learn about each other, I watch our bench, and I watch what kids are engaged and how they celebrate. I watch huddles to see who's on the edge, looking at their parents, oh, woe is me, I'm not playing, or hi to the girlfriend, or whatever else the case may be. We look at those things because it shows a disconnect. And we're about team guys, guys that want to drive this bus forward. And man, after every big win, the first guy out celebrating was always Michael Wilson. And I just love that about him. And so Michael, frankly, I was not as mature at your age as you are, and I have great respect for everything you did. Thanks again, pal. Little Caleb, another one of these high character seniors, and we've got a bunch of them. Lul, all the same things I said about Michael in practice. He was Lul could shoot that ball. He could shoot it. He and Bryson loved to kind of grind on each other a little bit in practice, which was fun to see. But Lul, outstanding scout member. I would always turn to Lul and Michael on the bench, and I would ask for advice from those guys. And when we needed a pickup or a lift, I would ask them to do that. And these guys were so selfless in that capacity. We had mentor groups that were going to continue to evolve and grow in future seasons. And Lul, I was fortunate enough to have Lul as one of my mentees, I guess, if you will. And Lul said something very profound. We were talking through mental health issues and things along those lines. And Lul just had the most simplistic yet thoughtful response that I heard in some time when thinking about these issues. He says, you know what I can do? And I just told myself every day, I'm just going to be nice to people. I mean, it's the most simplistic comment that I think all of us can take that, especially in times like today where we're all concerned about the coronavirus and, society's going to have a temporary scale back and things like that. I know that when I go into a grocery store, I'm smiling at everybody. I'm asking elderly people if they need a hand. I'm just trying to do things that, and frankly, that's a Lul lesson. I'm just nice to people. He would look for kids, or he looks for kids at Arapahoe that nobody will sit with at lunchtime, or they don't have obvious friends. He goes over and talks to those kids. I respect the hell out of that, frankly, from Lul, and I think as a community, as adults, we could learn a lot from him. So Lul, thanks for everything. I appreciate it. The moment of the year, the most exciting moment that any of us experienced was the Lul made 3 against, who was it? Now help me out. Fort Collins in the playoff game. This guy, Lul's a good player, but for various reasons this year had not scored a point in a varsity game. So he had had a couple missed free throws, and when Lou's out there, he's getting the ball to other people and he's distributing. And so Lou comes down and gets fouled, and the crowd's ready to erupt. And Lou goes up there. Lou's a very good free throw shooter. Rhythm, vision, brick. Okay, we're like, oh man, bummer, Lou. So he gets up there again. Worst brick. You're like, oh no, it's not going to happen for him. And so we're playing out the final seconds, but his partner in crime, partner in crime is right, Michael Wilson, gets this rebound. There's probably how many seconds, boys? 10?
Not much.
Not much, maybe 10. Michael waves Lul ahead up the left wing, and he penetrates quickly up the floor off the rebound, snaps it ahead, and Lul, and you can just see, and hopefully it's on our video that we have here, but you can see the whole student section and our bench. Joe Liberty's my guy, our next senior on the list. Joe's is a good basketball player, really good athlete. Just appreciate his commitment to this program. Joe kind of surprised me because when we first started working out in the summer and fall, he'd come up to me and say, "How are you doing today, Coach?" And I have to tell you, that's a very unusual thing, as many of you parents know, with teenagers today, is to take that initiative and to think about somebody else in that capacity. But Joe's a young man that played a lot of minutes last year. And this year, again, we had a lot of depth at that position as a wing. And Joe's minutes were certainly narrowed. And Joe had the best attitude about that, and I certainly appreciate that about him and his family. One thing that really stood out about Joe as well is he worked really hard to get Trevor Douglas on this basketball team. And knowing full well that in doing that, he was kind of sealing his own fate as far as on-court opportunities and minutes. And that's what it's all about as a member of a basketball community like Arapahoe, is to be truly selfless. Joe's going to be a CEO. I'm going to probably end up working for him in my post-retirement years or something like that. But I love and respect Joe and appreciate everything he did. Thanks, pal. We also want to talk about our four captains, and we'll begin with Trevor Douglas. And Trevor earned his captainship over the course of the season, which is incredible because here's a young man that did not play basketball last year and had such a profound impact on our group that it was disingenuous not to give him a captain's position. You probably know Trevor as an incredible lacrosse player. And Trevor, I'm just hoping and praying that we get your season back. I'm so excited that you have the opportunity to play at the next level as a Division I lacrosse player. But I really hope you get the senior season back and we can get out there and celebrate you. Trevor is tough as nails. This kid had ankle injuries, broke his nose. He had a rather sensitive injury that we'll leave off. Trevor knows what I'm talking about, that was so bad that we were unsure if he was going to be able to play late in the playoff run. But Trevor, I don't know, is one of the 2 or 3 most respected guys in our program. He had a calm about him and an air of confidence and understood what it was to win. And when a program's trying to rebuild itself and achieve at higher levels, you need guys that have been there, and not just coaches that have been there, but you need players that can speak the language of winning, a winning culture. And Trevor, I just appreciate everything he did. It was a joy to coach you. And he brought stinky food in every day to our film sessions. Kind of drove me crazy, but other than that, you were great to have. So thanks again, Trevor. Appreciate it. David Brophy, one of our senior captains. David Brophy, you talk about a guy that exemplifies getting the most that you can possibly get out of what God has given you. Not to say that he's a poor athlete, he's a very good athlete, but David was, we're going to call him a 6'2", might be 6'1", I don't know what the record really is, center or post in the incredibly athletic Centennial League. David he's our dog. He's the toughest kid that you'll ever see. He doesn't care one bit about how many points he has or any other statistical categories or how many minutes he played in a game. David cared about winning and promoting the brotherhood, the band of brotherhood that was Arapahoe basketball. This guy, over a career as a 3-year varsity player, I don't know how much he played as a sophomore, probably taken more charges than any guy in state history. I know he was tied with the guy this year for charges taken in a season. And just really appreciate David. What sticks out in my mind is, other than David's struggles academically, I'm kidding mostly, but David, I've never heard of a kid that he would show up on the progress report for failing jewelry. I don't know how you fail jewelry class. Can't you just take in a ring or hawk something off? And this guy would tell me day after day, Coach, it's hard. It was incredible that he was failing jewelry, but thank the good Lord he made it through jewelry class, and so good things ahead for David. But David, we're going to talk about an award that David is a recipient of a little later on. But this guy right here, everything that's right with Arapahoe basketball is David Brophy. And I appreciate how he would always come to me after big moments, big games. He said, Coach, thank you so much for coming here. And again, I'm like, well, I'm thanking you guys for the opportunity. But he was genuine in that regard. Our last two captains here were the engines of this team and really took us to this next level. And that would be, we'll start with Corey Hess, one of our captains. Corey's a great guy. Corey barks. He's a dog. He's intense. He fights. I love everything about that. But Corey has another side. Corey's actually a relationship builder. He's a guy that goes out and he'll bark at you, but he'll put his arm around a player after practice. He'll seek out kids, much like Lowell does, that are kind of on the outside of the fringe, and make sure that they know that they're valued in the Arapahoe community. The way he swept in our managers by telling them that, hey, if you want to be part of something where bigger than yourself, come and join us. And so Corey's the guy, frankly, that when I first took this job, he was the most sincere. He and I talked almost immediately after I was hired about this team and the direction of our program. And Corey bleeds Arapahoe Warrior basketball. Old gold, I guess, if you will. That's Corey Hess. We're all so happy that he was able to play this year after a pretty devastating knee injury last year that took him out of the entire summer and then regular season for basketball. And it was so awesome to see him not just go out there and play, but thrive. Corey's going to be a really good basketball player at the next level. And we're excited for his opportunities as we move forward. But again, Corey, thanks for everything you did. Corey changed and evolved his game based on our needs throughout the season. And definitely the guy that poured more into basketball than any kid in our program. The incredible, hour warm-ups your dad would put you through and everything you gave us. And we competed at high levels because of Corey Hess to a large part. So I love you and appreciate everything you did. And lastly, my man, Bryson Stevens. Okay, Bryson's a talented player. And it's really exciting right now to work with Division II coaches and JUCOs and even Division I colleges that want to think about Bryson as a preferred walk-on. This young man has some great opportunities that are upcoming. Bryson can score the ball any way he wants to. He's almost an old soul. He can score with his left, with his right, mid-range, shoot the three ball. The way he went at athletes like the Eagle Crest kids was truly impressive. A 48-point game in just over 3 quarters against Cherokee Trail. But with all the scoring accolades, Bryson was so unselfish. That guy Bryson lives to pass the ball. And the growth that Bryson took place in a 10-month period, a guy that didn't play a lot of defense, wasn't that interested in rebounding, perhaps at times in his past, bought into what we were doing and became a zealot for Arapahoe basketball and radically changed the way that his game evolved and played. And frankly, he's our best player. And he worked his tail off in practice. He was a leader of young men who grew a voice as the season went on. And we just love and appreciate Bryson. I really had so much fun with Bryson. We started doing some history tutoring, which was so awesome with Coach Safford and I. And I loved Bryson's genuine interest in learning and knowledge beyond basketball. And Bryce is one of the best players I've ever had play for me, and he's one of the best guys in Arapahoe in some time, and great things ahead for you. So appreciate it, Bryson. Love and appreciate everything that you did. Okay, we're going to talk about just a couple things here. Trying to speed before the battery dies out on the camera again. But we want to recognize our all-conference award winners. We're going to put our awards out and put them on film here in a moment. But honorable mention, Centennial League All-Conference went to Trevor Douglas. So coaches, it's a big deal for a guy who didn't even play last year and gave us that toughness we needed. Corey Hess was named to the second team Centennial League All-Conference, so congrats to Corey. That was an easy one. He was a dominant player, ran our point, was our dog defensively, and Corey, that's quite an award in this incredibly competitive league. And lastly, Bryson Stevens was named to the first team Centennial League All-Conference list. Super awkward. I'm not making all that clap noise. There are others here. But Bryson, man, deserving. One of the very best players in the state. I'm excited to see how all-state balloting turns out if and when we get to that as a group in CHSAA. But we have those young men to celebrate for those awards. We also have a medallion for all of our seniors, kind of an honorarium for the time and commitment. Maybe you can look at that thing in 5 years and remember what you did in support of this program. We also have an award. We're not going to do the MVP, the most improved. Frankly, our focus is on team growth and program building, and individuals will grow within that context. But we have an award that we want to continue that was given in some form in the past, the Isaac Bevins Award. You'll see the number 31 jersey in the at the end of the gym, Sitting Eagle Gymnasium. And Isaac Bevins, when I was a young coach, just came back into Colorado from my time in California. Isaac was tragically lost in a car accident, and it was after a summer basketball event, as a matter of fact. And Isaac was killed, but the reason that we've decided to name this Culture Award after Isaac is, as I've learned more and more about Isaac from our athletic director, Mr. McCabe, and having talked to former head coach Ron Vlasheen about this young man, he was incredible. He was a great student. Here's a guy that would go to the special needs classroom every single day, and nobody asked him to come, but he would spend time with kids in that environment, and he was just beloved. And he was an unbelievable basketball player that only played through his sophomore season before his life was lost in 1998, I believe it was. The legend of Isaac, from a basketball point of view, was a 5 overtime game against Green Mountain, in which he literally had a broken wrist on his shooting hand, right-handed player. If I'm wrong, we'll fix it. But he had a cast in round 1 against Doherty, and Coach McCabe, as a young assistant coach, kind of was aware that there were these little pieces of something that were developing at his feet, and Isaac was picking off his cast. He was so determined, he was removing his cast from his hand because it was just driving him crazy not to play. His parents were able to convince a district to allow him to play, and it was incredible, with the help of an attorney, to make that happen. And he suited up for the second round of playoffs against Green Mountain. This is one of the most storied games in state history. It went 5 overtimes. Isaac again was scoring with his offhand, and in these 5 overtimes, he had a role to play in every single one of them. And so, to honor this man of this life that was lost way too soon, but this incredible student athlete, we have this Isaac Bevins Award for high character. And we had a lot of great options within our program to give this award to, but when it all came down to it, we thought there was one man that exemplified what it is to be a true warrior, an excellent student, except for one class, a young man who is dedicated and kind to all, and just relentlessly sought excellence in all that he did. And the Isaac Bevins Memorial Award, or annual award for high character, goes to David Brophy. So congrats, David. Finally, we want to just thank again, this is our first year here in the program, the legacy of our seniors, this foundation that you guys have built. For a lot of our players, listen, playing time, if playing time is all that's going to define your experience, it's going to be a frustration for most of you. Competitive sports are kind of like an inverted funnel. You have a large foundation. It's more and more challenging to rise to the point here. And we love all of our players. We do not define you by your playing time or how many points you score. But if that's how you define your experience, many of you will leave frustrated in the end. The legacy of this group, especially Joe, Michael Wilson, and Lowell, was to be selfless and understand that the group comes before self. And these guys exemplified that. So if you struggle with that as a parent or a young player, you may want to kind of take a look in the mirror and understand that we want people that are driven individually and seek excellence. But if that's all it's about for you, you're probably not going to do very well in this program, or frankly, you're going to struggle in life at times, because there are no turns in competitive sports. We run a meritocracy-based system. We're going to play the kids regardless of grade level, at the level we feel that they're prepared to play. We're going to love you all regardless of the minutes you get. But understand this, that legacy of our first year seniors was to be selfless and to love team above all else. The winning comes from that culture that we're building. And so buy into that. And I'm just telling you, this is not a lip service for me or my staff. I think you've heard it enough from me. It's going to be merit-based as we move forward as well. Finally, our underclassmen, very quickly, and families, the Google Calendar's updated. We'll see what the district and state, local levels allow us to do. But there will be basketball later in the spring, certainly in the summertime, so you can look at that. Feel free to email me with any direct questions that you have. Get out there and work, but you have to work smart. You should not be involved in group settings. You should follow what the CDC says to do, but you can work on diet, physical fitness, and get yourself in the right position. And again, let's stay in touch. We love all of you. Thank you so much for this first season. Go Warriors, and looking forward to the future. Take care.